close till I get up. Time is barely on our side. I don't wanna waste what's left. The storms we chase are leading us, and love is all we'll ever trust. Yeah, no, I don't wanna waste what's left. And on we'll go, through the wastelands, through the highways, till my shadow turns to sun rays. And on we'll go, through the wastelands, through the highways, and on we'll go. Through the highways, till my shadow turns to sun rays. And on we'll go, through the wastelands, through the highways, and on we'll go. Turn us to thousands, and we'll grow in number, fueled by them to see the horizon. Turn us to thousands, and on we'll go, through the wastelands, through the highways, till my shadow turns to sun rays. And on we'll go, through the wastelands, through the highways, and on we'll go. Hold me close till I get up. Time is barely on our side. I don't wanna waste what's left. The storms we chase are leading us, and love is all we'll ever trust. Yeah, no, I don't wanna waste what's left. And on we'll go, through the wastelands, through the highways, till my shadow turns to sun rays. And on we'll go, through the wastelands, through the highways, and on we'll go.
Alright, hey, how's it going? Sorry for starting a little bit early. And sorry for the weird camera angle. So this is my I got a new setup. I got a new MacBook. So this is the first time streaming off of it. So I'm gonna be trying to I didn't have a big enough dock to get every little piece that I want, like the camera, for example. So I'm using the webcam, the built-in webcam, but I'm using my I'm still using my Yeti mic. So please, anytime through the stream, if you notice any sort of weird issues, if I'm not, sound check, if I'm not that loud right now, please let me know. I'm gonna try to get the chat up real quick. Should pop up here in a second. Alright, cool. Let me pop this. Sorry, I don't mean to stare into your soul. I have the Mac laptop right in front of me, or the laptop screen. Pop out chat. Alright. So hopefully I have the chat up now, so should be able to see. So I see Nick's asking how's it going? How do you like the new MacBook? It's pretty good. I'm still getting used to it. I use one for work, so it's not like it's like my first Mac or anything like that. I've always used one for work. It's just my first one to personalize, I should say. But yeah, I like it. Still trying to, like I said, I don't have everything hooked up to it yet, for the stream. Mostly just the camera, and I have to use, and the keyboard. So I have to use the MacBook keyboard, but I like it. All right. So I'm hoping. So I'm hoping I can read your chat. If you, I'll try to monitor it, but yeah, the window that they gave me is extra large, and I don't know if I don't know if every chat message will come through. So hopefully it does. All right. If it doesn't, that's weird. Okay, I might just have to stare down at the screen. All right. Anyways, sorry about that. All right, let's go ahead and get started. I don't know if you've seen, but sorry, jeez, it's I can't read tonight. I don't know if you've already seen in the Discord, but I failed the dev core again. Oh man, Nick, that sucks. What do you find to be tough about it? Did you feel I guess, better question, did you feel that you scored better this time around in a specific subject, or do you think you just need more time with some of the content? Or did you feel that the test got harder? That's a question too. All right. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. So, welcome everyone. If this is your first time, we're working on my project here called NetCheck. Basically, it's a web UI that will provide network validation checks. So, think for a brand new network device install, checking CPU, memory, logs, routing, neighbor relationships, that sort of thing. So kind of building it out to where engineers, your tier 1 through your senior engineers could use it, and really the senior engineers can customize it with little programming knowledge. So that's kind of the goal of this project. Nick says, I thought I had a better hang of it, but the results don't show that. Some sections I did better, others I got worse. Results don't show that. Yeah, it's funny that you say that, Nick, because that's kind of the way I felt with the DevNet Expert. I felt that I did better in some sections, but the results didn't show it. So, don't beat yourself up about it. I mean, honestly, if you're not dealing with it every day, like if you're not in, developing software, or, if your day-to-day is more network engineering with the side of, automation, or if it's no automation, I could see how you might struggle a little bit. But yeah, just keep with it. You're a smart guy. You've definitely helped me along with the DevNet Expert. Obviously the results don't show it. But you definitely gave me some really good pointers, and they helped out a lot when I took the exam. So I know you'll crush it. Comparison of the sections are in the failure Plex channel. Okay, yeah, I'll have to check that out after the stream, Nick. But yeah, man, just stay on top of it. You'll get it. All right. Where was I? Okay, so that's a simple run through of what this project is all about. We have a good starting point with it. So last week, I guess I'll show you the progress I made post stream. So last stream was probably really boring for many. I basically ran into a problem and just kept running my head into the wall until we had to end stream. It took the whole 2 hours. Not much progress got completed. So yeah, so basically I pivoted post stream. I was shut the stream off. I was kind of frustrated with kind of where I was at, so I pivoted a little bit and went back to a framework that I know better, which is Htmx, because I believe before we were using data tables, and so Htmx I'm more familiar with. I'm more familiar and kind of understand the flow better versus just doing a front end JavaScript framework, just vanilla JavaScript as well. So I ended up figuring out a solution with this. So let me show you guys that real quick. So I'm here at NetCheck homepage. So you also see that I added a link to the custom validation, which I was showing last week. And then here's the results tab here. So I think this actually turned out pretty well, in my opinion. So for those that don't really understand or know too much about Htmx, it's a server-side rendering. So its focus is on hypertext. It's not really a JavaScript framework. It's really the opposite. It's trying to remove the need of using a lot of JavaScript. It does integrate some JavaScript, so I'm not going to say like absolutely nothing. But it does help someone like me that knows more of the back end, really the Python perspective versus a front end developer. Like I'm no React developer. I'm not a Vue developer. So Htmx has worked out a lot to help me, dynamically load content, dynamically transition pages, that sort of thing. And so what you don't see is happening. So you might be like, okay, all you did was return an HTML template. So what you don't see and what Htmx is doing in the background. So if I go to inspect real quick and network, there we go. I'm gonna let it sit here for a second. Hopefully it doesn't make me a liar. So it just came through. So every 15 seconds, what happens is this table gets refreshed. And so every 15 seconds, Htmx does a GET request which basically does a database lookup to return all the data. So all the results that we have in our database are then returned into this nice HTML format. And so it's really server-side rendering. I mean, that's the best thing I can explain. Think of it, though, as more like with JavaScript, like AJAX calls. So that's your asynchronous JavaScript calls. So that's kind of all it's doing in the background. It's just on a timer every 15 seconds. I figure that's probably the best thing to do. It really doesn't take that much processing. It's not a ton of data, and it's only active when the page is active, right? So it's not really like sitting in the background doing this constantly. It's only when the results page is up. So yeah, so that was kind of that was my solution, I guess is the best way to put it. You may wonder why a lot of the table has zeros across the board. So I actually figured out yesterday, and then asked the question today in the PyATS, the WebEx Teams room. So it took them a while to even get PyATS available on the Apple Silicon chip. And so I installed it yesterday, right, getting prepared for the stream, PyATS and Genie, I should clarify. And it, for whatever reason, when you run a PyATS job, it doesn't run the actual test script. It's nothing that I'm doing, at least for my understanding, because the same script and the same job file work on my Windows PC and on a Linux VM, right? So it works. It's just for whatever reason on Apple Silicon, it doesn't. I posed the question today in the WebEx Teams room. I didn't really get any responses besides someone just saying, hey, it's good luck. Just spin up a Linux VM, which kind of sucks. So hoping that it works in the future. The good part is I don't really need the test results per se for development. A lot of the front end and the back end, I don't really need the test results. I could get all zeros like this and be okay. But just as a heads up for anyone that is developing on a Mac with an M1, M2 chip, PyATS is not going to work. And it's so weird because that's the only library that I definitely just fails. It just doesn't work. So I don't know. At least the ones that I work with. I shouldn't say none at all. Just the ones that I work with. So, all right. So tonight's stream, what I wanted to do, now that you saw the progress with the results tab, is I want to create a basic inventory. And I think we've talked about this before, but I want to create an inventory to where you can create, so like this custom validation, right? We can drag and drop things from left to right, and we can name the test. But I want to be able to have another box up here just to basically put the name of the test devices or inventory devices that you want to run this test against. Right? So it needs to be dynamic in nature. Obviously, it needs to be stored in the back. There has to be a persistent storage somewhere of all these devices. And then obviously there has to be a way for the user to put in these devices. So I wanted to try to design or think about how and what parameters I need for that, knowing what libraries I'm using in the back end, right? So just, you guys, if you've been here, you know kind of the underpinnings with NetCheck is PyATS and Genie. That's kind of through and through the testing framework being used. So in order to use that framework, you have to create a testbed file. And a testbed file has a few different parameters that are required. So we're going to go through, figure out what parameters are required, what ones do we need from the user, what can we figure out ourselves, and kind of in between. So, but before we do that, before we think through the inventory, I did create this nice little, call it a high-level diagram, but it basically just helps, helps me, but mostly helps, the viewers as well, for you guys to see what all makes up this application. So we have the front end, which is your HTML, CSS. I do have a little bit of jQuery sprinkled in there, and then of course Htmx, which I just discussed. For the back end, I'm using Fast API. For the in-memory storage, I went over that last stream. So I'm using Redis as the message broker, and then RQ as kind of that job queue, job management tool. And then obviously RQ has some workers with it. You can obviously spin those up as many as you want, which ultimately those workers are what run those PyATS jobs. And then for persistent storage, right now just SQLite. That can definitely change to Postgres in the future. But for right now, I figure, we'll just keep it simple. And then when we're ready to actually deploy it, or kind of make this call it more mature, probably move to Postgres and then kind of go from there. So I purposely didn't include the libraries or anything else. I didn't mention, I mentioned Fast API, but I didn't mention like we're using PyATS. I didn't mention like we're using Sql Model to model some of the tables in the database. I think that we'll kind of get to that point, but I hope that this is kind of helpful for those watching. It's helped me at least, and I think it's a good kind of spot to get back to if I get lost. So let's think about the inventory real quick, right? So let me switch over to, let's go to PyATS docs. And let's do testbed topology information. Testbed. Right, so we have the different, so obviously everything with PyATS is, a Python object, right? And so we have the testbed object, and let's see. What we want is really the device, because the testbed is simple enough. We're just going to name it and add devices under it. But the devices is what we're really interested in. So just, from my experience, the name of the device is huge. The OS is required as well. And name, OS, and then the IP address, right? So how are you going to connect to it? Or connections, I should say. Connections and credentials for that matter. So with the inventory, so the credentials I'm going to keep as a separate piece. I think that should stay separate. And that way we can more or less associate credentials with a device versus assigning credentials to every single device we add. That may change in the future. But for right now, our focus for tonight is kind of creating that inventory. And I'm thinking what we'll do is probably do the front end. So we'll start with the front end. And then what we'll do is think about the back end, because the back end, obviously, we'll have to create a new table for the devices and then columns for everything that we need, right? So we'll probably just use a sequential ID for, the primary key. We'll have the host name of the device, the IP address of the device, the operating system. We'll probably ask the user, we'll probably give them select options, because PyATS really only supports certain operating systems and it expects certain values. So we'll probably do a drop down for that. And like I said, the credentials I'm still thinking about. So I'm thinking instead of adding those in with the device, possibly associating them later with a with kind of a list of credentials, right? So like more or less you add your credentials into NetCheck and then you associate credentials with the device. But I'm not too sure yet. But for right now, not a big deal because we're just using environment variables to connect to the devices. But obviously at some point when there's multiple credentials for different devices, we'll want to be able to do that. All right. So let's go ahead and we will do the front end. So I'm thinking what we'll do first is, we'll create a new file called inventory. Call inventory. And we'll create a route to it so that way we can at least see it. And we'll put it on the nav bar. So let's go ahead and throw that on. And we'll call it inventory. So, and just as a reminder to everyone, so the idea for this file, this inventory, isn't to replace anything or be the end-all be-all, right? So the idea is, here's a basic simple inventory that you could use, or if you'd like, you can integrate it with a netbox or your other single source of truth. So that's kind of where the back end comes in, and we have to figure out how that interaction is going to work, right? So beyond the items we need to save in the database, we have to understand, okay, from an API perspective, how do we want that data formatted? How does this adding a single device look? How does adding multiple devices look? So need to kind of think that through a little bit. And so that's kind of why I'm pushing the back end off till a later point. And also the front end may also give us a little clearer picture of what data and how we're taking in that data from the user, assuming they're using kind of the web UI. But like I said, the API will be kind of another conversation. All right, so let's go ahead and create a route real quick. So we're going to create a route for inventory. I don't know why there's... All right, so now let me find... So now we should have another thing here. Okay, so we just copied the home screen, which is why you see, the same thing. So I'm thinking for this piece, I'm thinking about creating like a add to inventory box, because I really like this appearance here, this box look. Making it smaller and putting it on the right side right here, and then that way the inventory can pop up, kind of take up this left side. So kind of split the screen in half. Left side will be the inventory, and it'll be a bunch of rows with all the devices. Right side will be a little box that says add new device, and you'll be able to add the inventory. All right, so we'll scoot this guy over. Okay. Max width. All right, so we're going to just call this one devices. We'll just call this placeholder for inventory. And let me check how we did this one here. Yeah, so I want to do something like this, where we have a form. So let me go ahead and take that, put it there. All right. See what this looks like. All right. So I'm going to put the devices, the inventory list right here. And then to the right here, I need to add a row or a column. That's what it is. Yeah, there we go. That's what I was aiming for. So we got this. And div. Oh wait, let's do that. Oh, here we go. This is what I meant. That's just that. All right. All right, so we have, let me get this and push it in a little bit. This is like the worst part about HTML. I was trying to figure out, did you add that extra div tag or not? All right, so I have the header. There's that. All right. Oh, I mean, shouldn't be that big of a problem, but all right. So that one has all the div in it. All right, let me stick with that. And we have this one here. Okay, that div is already taken care of. We have a div body. Okay. Then we have the form. I may need to establish the row first. That might be a good thing. I just realized I didn't have a row here. So without a row, they don't. Let's see. Now it should split. There we go. All right. So now we're split. So this is kind of where we're at right now. So I'm going to get rid of this top section here. Actually, I might add in a section to say, or up here to say add a device, and then get rid of this section, and then probably keep kind of this like relative host name, operating system, and then the IP address, because that's really all we need. Now we could establish a type field. Probably a drop down to where we could say like a switch, a router, that sort of thing. Or when we add the device, we can do some sort of discovery process to pick up whether, you know, the model or that sort of thing. So still, that could be it. That might work. But all right. But I'm going to go ahead and just keep kind of pushing forward here. All right, so we don't need that. We don't need the what's checked. Actually, I might do add a device. All right. Okay, that could look much better. Devices H4. Oh, you know what? We'll do this then. Oops. I'm thinking I might keep that in the header though. So I gotta make it the width a little bit smaller, and I actually think I might make this, the devices list bigger, maybe pop it out to like right here, the list, you know, our inventory list over here, and then make this a little smaller. So let me go ahead and do that. So we'll pop this out to maybe 8, and then do 4 for the column sizes. See what that does here. Well, that didn't really help. Oh, that's because the max width. And then we'll do margin right. There we go. All right, so we have something put together here. Hey Nick, sorry, I'm just getting to your message here. I was kind of in it. Apologies if I didn't see it. Is there a function to add RBAC or other security features so not just anyone can access the NetCheck app? Not currently, no. We don't have any sort of login system, and I haven't really designed or thought about the best way to do that yet. I'm sure I'll probably start with like a local user database and then kind of go from there. But yeah, right now it's kind of just open. And or is that a future? Yeah, it's a future feature. That's the best way to handle it. Put it on the list. All right. So all right, so I'm trying to think of this from the functionality, right? So add a device, what we'll do when you press submit here is it'll pop up and basically provide so what we'll do it asynchronously. Okay, so basically we'll press submit, it'll disable the submit button for a couple seconds, and then provide feedback immediately to say device has been added. And that way what we'll do is we will do a probably some sort of post to a backend function that will store the device information into the database. And while that happens here with the devices, we'll probably do relative to what the results page does, where it refreshes every 15 seconds or so. But with the inventory, we'll probably do a smaller time frame, because if someone adds to their inventory, they'll probably want to see it right away. So let me change those labels real quick as well. So we'll call it add a device, add device. Add device. Device hostname. Device hostname. Enter device hostname. Can the add a device frame move with the screen as you scroll up or down the inventory list? I'm sure there's definitely a way to do that. For right now, it's just going to stay kind of at the top of the screen. But yeah, I'm sure in the future we definitely can do that. So I'm basically just renaming all these ID fields and whatnot to reflect. And then we'll call this device IP. And really, if you think of, actually, I guess we could, we could just say device name, right? Like a friendly name, because with PyATS, you can do learn host name. You can learn the host name of the device. So it doesn't have to match. And honestly, that's what we'll probably do on the back end. All right, so let me add a device. Let me just throw in another BR tag here, make it look a little neater. So it could look a little cleaner. Yeah, it's fixed, Nick. Yeah, yep. So your inventory will pop up here. And this will expand, so it's not going to be just like, obviously, this placeholder. It'll be the length of the page and have scroll functionality. But yeah, then we'll add a device. This, like I said, will send a post. And it will add the device into inventory. Yeah, yep, the frame is fixed for now. Yep. Yeah, and it probably will stay that way. This, if we do have it to where you can scroll up and down and it will kind of ride with you along the right side, yeah, that'll be like a future Open a pull request. How about that? I'll let someone else kind of put that in there. No, but in all seriousness, that'll kind of be like a lower priority in the future. But, all right. So when we submit, we want this data to be sent to the backend. It's a form. And just trying to think the best way to do that. So there's a couple ways we can do that. We can, when we press submit, it does a post request to a specific route. So like in our case currently, it would do a post to, add device. So it would do a post / add device, and whatever is listed under that route, it would perform that that process. So what we could do for now is when you add a device, it would do a, like I said, it would do a post to add device, and then we could add it to our database and make it a synchronous function to where it adds to the database, and then all it would do is maybe redirect back to the inventory list. Or, I'm sorry, the inventory page. And then have some sort of helpful message to say, hey, this worked, hey, this didn't work. But that's kind of my thought with that. Oh, hey, Blues, how are you doing? I haven't seen you in a minute. I'm good. I'm doing pretty well. Hope you're doing well. All right. So let's pop back up here. Hold on. All right. So actually let's kind of turn on our creative mindset real quick and let me show you what I mean, or like kind of what I'm aiming for. So ultimately what I want to do is when we have the inventory file, right, we've already talked about, or we've looked at the results page, and it does basically just a lookup in our database in the results data, or the table, the test results table, returns all the information that we want. And then if we go back to inventory, that's kind of what I want to do in this box as well. Now the difference being is I want to be able to search in my inventory, right? And so my thought with that is using Htmx, you can use the active search. And let me show you what that is real quick. Maybe. Examples. Oh, don't tell me that the site's not working. Oh, no. Oh, wait, hold on. Let me see if... Maybe it just oh, okay, here we go. Sorry, I just had to do a hard refresh. So let me just get down to the example real quick. Oh, let me pop that. Okay, so here we have, it starts out with showing no contacts, right? But let's say I want to type in Dan, right? Well, that didn't work. Test. Okay. There we go. Okay. Here we go. So it does list all the contacts, right? So kind of picture this to where this could be our inventory, right? And then we'll just look up cache for now, right? So let's say cache is a host name. So type in cache. You saw the little pop up to where it said searching, right? And now we have our device per se, right? In this case, it's a contact. but you can see that it's a device, or it could be a device. But you can see, like, this is what I picture to be our inventory. Like, we scroll down and we're like, you know what? Let's look up Conan. I saw that was a name, and it pops up with that contact. So this is kind of what I'm picturing with our inventory. And so they actually give you some good example code here about what or how to do it with Htmx. So I think it's pretty neat because it's very easy to understand. Obviously, you have to know a little bit about Htmx, but you can see what happens is, here's the image used when searching. So that animation, you just throw it in a little span tag with the Htmx indicator class. And then the input, which is obviously the text field, you would plug in, what you're searching for. And then here are the Htmx magic, I call it. So what it does is it does a post request. It only does a post request to this route /search using this trigger. And the trigger is just like you would in JavaScript, a key up trigger, and it's delayed at 500 milliseconds, right? So as I'm typing, it's not going to keep trying to basically thrash a database or anything like that, or hit do a post on that search route. It waits 500 milliseconds, and then it does its search, right? Or its post request to search. And then these last two pieces here, HX target, is it targets the search results div ID, right? So I'm sure I didn't actually look, but it targets that specific area in the HTML on the HTML page to load your results in, right? And so it replaces that, and that's kind of where I imagine that this area here is that search. What is it called? Yeah, search results. Oh, duh, it's right here. Right. I'm sorry, I said div ID. I just meant it targets that ID. It could be a div ID. In this case, it's a table body, but it targets that area to replace the results. So normally, what Htmx is expecting to be returned is HTML code. So when you do an HX post to the /search route, it's expecting HTML to be returned. So think Jinja 2 HTML template, kind of like what I've done in the past and what a lot of engineers do with like Flask, Fast API, even Django. I know Django has its own templating language, but you get my drift with that. And so whatever it gets returned back from /search, that HTML code, that HTML will be posted to search results, that area, right? That has that ID. In this case, it's the body of the table. And then lastly, this indicator is basically, what do you want to use to identify and tell the user, hey, I'm working on it, right? It's that kind of that loading screen, right? And that's where you could use, it calls on this image here, bars.svg, right? So if you put all that together and I type in Codan again, you'll see right here that you have that indicator pop up, right? It's very fast, but you quickly see it, some bars, and it says searching, right? And you can see it whenever I back it out as well. So if you read this, that's kind of basically what I just talked through. That's kind of that's what happens. But if you're interested, the examples, there's plenty other examples, but I'm currently looking at the active search. Are you developing a CRUD module? Yeah, so my idea is it's going to be completely, there's going to be full feature parity between, I don't want to call it API driven, but whatever you do through the web UI, you should be able to do through the API. So that way, if you do want to integrate with any other third party or some other piece of software, you can do that. that's why, this inventory piece I'm working on right now, I don't fully expect everyone to use it. I would expect, if everything works out and people start using this in any sort of like enterprise or even anything outside of their home lab, I would assume you'd want to integrate it with some sort of source of truth or some other inventory system that's already been established versus, oh yeah, export your CSV and import it into here. Like, I don't want you to go through that. I want you to be able to understand what NetCheck is expecting in its inventory, and then you be able to make that API call or that integration point. All right. So this is kind of where we're going. So before we go any further, though, before we go into like, okay, obviously this is pretty, like, you can kind of see, all right, I have to make a new route. With this route, I then have to pass in some data. That way the user understands, or we understand what the user wants, right? So when I typed in Conan, how does this post route understand what user I'm looking for, right? But before we go anywhere, anything beyond that, right? I need to be able to create a table model in our database, right? And so that's kind of where we need to go next. But I'm gonna quickly just take a look here, see if there's anything else that we need to add, and I'll kind of take a quick pause. If anyone can think of anything else that we should add in before we start looking at kind of the back end piece, because I think this is all we'll need from the user. It's just the host name, operating system, and the device IP, and then from there we should be able to make kind of a cookie cutter test bed. Nick says, or provide a subnet to discover your network devices. Yeah, no, I'm good. Last online status. So you're kind of thinking, okay, so Nick, I kind of see where you're going with that. Last online, a status, remove a device. Yeah, so removing a device, I may try to integrate into the table itself. It's same with modified device info. I plan to be able to search a device and then select it and then modify it right there in the table. So that way you don't have to yeah, and then same thing with I was just reading through your other comments. Last online and status. The last online and status, I think, will probably have to be discovery jobs that happen in the background every so often. Yeah. In fact, NetMiko has something that can help net devices using auto detect. I've never heard of that, Blues. NetMiko auto detect. I'll take a look at it real quick, Blues. Initiated new with the detect is instantiated. So what are the types of the different device types that can be returned though? Yeah, I mean, from what I can see, it's pretty cool, but here we go. Maybe examples. Oh, wait, no. So it connects to the device and name of the best device type to use. Dictionary of the whole matching result. So would it be try to guess the best device type. So would it be the device types that NetBeco? This might be an issue. Oh, yeah, it's a GitHub issue. Let's see. I'm not really looking at it as like a, okay, what's the problem? I'm more looking at kind of a more fuller example. Auto detect, iOS XE are identical, so auto detect. Okay, so this is what could be the problem with that Blues, is this issue actually right here. So looks like Kirk has iOS and iOS XE are identical in NetBeco, so auto detect will use the more general iOS solution. The issue with this is we can't use iOS for many parsers. I mean, iOS has many parsers, but if we want to use any sort of learn functionality, I've ran into issues using vanilla iOS versus iOS XE. Well, we're not really using any learn functionality. I've heard there's a dictionary that you can check called SSH Mapper Base. Okay. I got you. Let me see. I just saw it. Where was it at? I thought I just saw it here. The SSH Mapper Base. Assume these are the same. I've heard Kirk Byers say that on the official site GitHub, maybe there's a list of supported devices. Assume these are the same ones that can auto detect. Yeah, that's kind of where I was going with it, Nick. I'm using that functionality just to discover NetDev or net device vendors. That's actually kind of cool, Blues. I did not know this. Thank you for pointing me in this direction. This kind of changes it up a bit, because then all I really need is the IP address of the device, because I can learn the host name, and it seems like I can auto detect the operating system as well. Then I can log into the device and issue show version or equivalent to a particular vendor in order to really know the model. But in general, that function works well so far. That's pretty cool. That is pretty awesome. Oh, here we go. And I don't know if you can see that well or not. If you can't, I'm going to try to zoom in just a little bit. Here's that SSH Mapper Base that Blues was referring to. Interesting. Okay, so it runs. From my understanding, it runs a show version. Dispatch key is the SSH detect method to call. Dispatch key we popped off dictionary. Keyword arguments that we passed to dispatch. Note the CMD needs to avoid output paging. Okay. So it runs show version against a particular device, and it looks for patterns. I'm assuming, like in this case with Cisco iOS, it finds Cisco iOS software or Internetwork operating system software in the show version, and that's where it would say, okay, you're a Cisco iOS device. Interesting. This is pretty freaking cool. Juniper, F5, Linux. Yeah, and there are different commands. Wow, okay. This is pretty sweet, actually. Cisco WLC. Okay, so sort as such that the most common commands are first. Okay, yeah. That's pretty awesome. Then I can, Blue says, then I can log into the device and it oh, okay, I already read that one. You can kind of transform the NetMiko dict to the testbed net device. Yeah. Facts. Oh, hey, Ryan. What's going on? It's nice to see you in the chat. How you doing? Hopefully your new job's going well. I haven't talked to you. I actually was just thinking about messaging you yesterday, seeing how you were doing. Oh, I meant to start off the stream with that. Finally caught you. Yeah. I don't know if you saw, Ryan, but someone passed the DevNet expert. I saw on LinkedIn someone passed it, so I guess they got their first person to pass it. So job's going well. Lots to take in. I saw that. Yeah, Blues. I think that's his name. I'm not connected with him in any way. Like I didn't know him, but I just saw a lot of people's reaction. So yeah, good for them. Yeah, man. After taking it a couple times, kudos. You know, I would. I'd love to talk to him sometime for sure, because there's just so much to cover, and I didn't honestly, after taking it a couple times, I figured someone would pass it at some point, but I didn't think it would be this year after the preparation that's needed for that. But yeah, good for them. I mean, that's awesome. Glad he passed. All right, so Blues, I think you just blew my mind with this auto detection. So I'm trying to think of the best way to do this now. If we'll use NetMiko in the background. So maybe what we'll do is we'll plug in the host name. We won't need the operating system because obviously that's what we're detecting. And then the IP address. Let me go over here. Actually, come to think of it, I'll put the host name in there, but we won't really need it. All we'll need is the IP address, because obviously in a lab environment, this might change in the future. Is we don't have a DNS lookup on our host name, so we'll plug in an IP address here. We'll say auto detect, and then SSH detect. Wow. Blues, this is pretty cool. I'm real happy that you brought this up. All right, cool. So then I guess what we'll do is there anything else you can get from here? What else is returned? Dictionary of whole matching result. So from SSH detect, it looks like only auto detect is the yeah, auto detects the only method. And what's it return? It only returns best match. Damn. Yeah, it'd been nice if we could have that'd been nice if we could have got some more information. So like if it runs show version, I think we're looking at, yeah, I'm looking at the same file here. If it ran show version, it'd be cool if we could get some more information from it. Yeah, just the best match. Yeah, it'd been cool if we could have got like the OS. You know what I mean? Like kind of like learned about the device a little more. I don't know though. I'm just trying to think now from like a user perspective. I mean, how difficult is it to plug in iOS XE versus iOS, you know? Or Junos, or you know what I mean? I think that's very cool and very helpful. But I think if I wanted to implement this, I think I would want to do some more digging with it. So, you know, along with just detecting what type of operating system it is, because it already runs Chauffeur, at least for iOS. Where did I see that? Yeah, like at least for iOS, it ran, or Cisco iOS, it ran show version. What I think I would want it to do is be able to grab some other data, right? So that way, like, we don't just detect the operating system and then run show version again, like connect to the device again and run show version. Wonder if that, I wonder if that's a feature. I mean, that might be pushing NetMiko a little bit, because I know like Napalm has the getters, where you could like, you know, get facts from a device and so on. So I wonder if we're kind of getting outside the NetMiko realm, but because we're already running the show version command, it'd be kind of cool to get some other information. SSH auto detect. Blues, you're crushing it. Interesting. All right. With the Genie flag enabled, as soon as you know the NetMiko vendor, you can issue show version using another function, or using send command with the Genie flags enabled. Yeah, you're not wrong. Yeah, that actually may work. I guess my thing was, it's not a super expensive transaction, but like because we already got the show, you know, because we're already running show version or variations of it across different operating systems, like it'd be nice to be able to like capture some more data. But I get it. It's fine. All right, I'm done complaining now. Yeah, Blues, what you said, that makes sense. Yeah, so we can do that. All right. So let's do a flowchart real quick. Let's think this one through. So we're gonna auto detect OS using NetMiko. I'll zoom in a little bit too. I'll keep this here. I'm still on the fence about this, just as a heads up, because I don't think it's that big of a deal for the user to plug this in, but at the same time, I do understand if I was the user, like a network engineer, I would be like, what dumb tool can't recognize this as an iOS device or a Junos device? You know what I mean? So I'm sure there's some sort of level of like competence that you expect the tool to have. So I do see how that's a valid point. All right. I don't need this. All right, so we're going to auto detect, and then we're going to do a send command with Genie flag. Oh, I guess what I could do is probably put a big text here and say inventory discovery process. Real big. Boom. Alright, nothing's official about this, so. Notice the messages are showing up a bit faster on the new MacBook. Cause for a celebration, perhaps. Yeah, dude, everything's just much smoother. Hopefully, and let me know if the video quality, like, if everything's kind of being more smooth with this stream. All right, so we're gonna gather facts. Here we're going to discover OS. Okay, so once we send the command, get it with the Genie flag, we get the information that we need about the device. Let's think about the different things we want to store. Store the following device info. So I think we should store, let me go back up in the chat. Yeah, Blues, it isn't M2, it's the MacBook Air. I've been kind of waiting on it for ever since like it was rumored back like late last year, or I guess it was early this year. I've been kind of waiting for it, and I'm really happy with it. I got the Midnight Blue, or just maybe it's just Midnight, but it's pretty cool. All right, I'm going back up to where Nick was mentioning about information we want to know about it. About the devices. So I think we'll get I think OS version is one of the basic, right? I mean, I think we all can agree with that. The OS version. Do we care about the serial number? I'll add it, but I don't know if we care. Hold on. Let me pop this down. Host name. Blues, were you the one that built DNA Center? You're coming up with all this you're coming up with all this stuff like right off the bat, man. No, I'm totally joking. Host name, vendor. Yeah. I guess I could get the vendor out of it too. I'm trying to think of things that I can get from from show version output, okay? Because I don't want to run a bunch of commands, but all that sounds good. Model OS version, yeah. So maybe we just do model. All right, I'm stopping there because I think that's probably good enough for an inventory. By the way, how's your wife doing? Ryan, she's doing good. We're kind of in the home stretch here, so Yeah, probably got maybe a month left of streams, maybe a month left, and then I'll be going dark probably for most of the fall. But yeah, thanks for asking. If you built DNA Center, I have questions. Yeah, no, I didn't mean it in a mind blown way. I was more thinking like all the parameters that Blues can rattle off. Glad to hear. LOL, sad news. I don't. Yeah. Yeah, Blues. I actually don't know too much about you, Blues, but you're always in the stream and you always give really good information, so I'm glad you're here. You mean you're not going to stream during birthing? No, that's going to be a hard pass. Yeah, let me get into how great Fast API and PyATS and NetMiko is during birth. Yeah, that's all right. We'll call this stage store facts. All right. I think that's a pretty solid chauffeur. Let me just... All right. I think we're good. Your wife would never forgive you. Oh, yeah. 100%. I wouldn't blame her either, you know? Okay, so I think we're kind of set here, right? I think we're pretty good. So, thanks to Blues' recommendation, we're going to do auto detect. Hey man, got catching up. Gotta run. Gotta make lunch for the little one tomorrow. Hey, no problem, Ryan. Thanks for stopping by. I appreciate it. And good luck with the job. I hope things start making sense and you're able to take everything in. All right. Second one to be on, who knows? Also just kidding. Yeah, I know you're kidding, Nick. All good. Yeah, thanks, Ryan. And yeah, we'll have to catch up sometime. All right. All right, so I think we're good. So, funny enough, this actually kind of doubles up for us as how we're going to create our table models. Host name, management IP, vendor, model, operating system, and then the serial number. So I think this is a good starting point for, because I don't want to go too in depth, right? Because then you don't want to go into like, okay, how can we store the config, right? How can we make sure the device is online? Because then you start thinking about background tasks, right? Because then you have to worry about, okay, every X amount of minutes, we have a background task kickoff that goes through each of the IPs in the inventory and ping them. And then based on that result, we then say, hey, this device is green or red, right? That will be coming. I'm not counting it out. I'm just saying I want to keep it very basic for now, and then kind of moving forward, we can add to it. So you would gather other facts from devices like interface statistics, just not display them on the inventory screen. Potentially. So this is kind of where I need to make sure I keep my separation as far as like, it's not a monitoring system, right? It's a validation system. So it's gonna be not constantly probing the network, not giving you up down alerts. It's meant that this inventory system is meant for you to run your validation tests against and provide a simple way to keep track of all of the devices that you're running tests against. So yeah, trust me, Nick, I mean, it's a good idea, but I do want to try to keep the focus just on the validation piece. All right, so we have our flow. I think, so what time we got? 9:20. All right, so if let's say we got like another half hour maybe. I think it might be best if we start looking at the database and how we're going to store and model what I'm going to call the devices table that's going to store all these results. And then if we can get to that point and close it out, then we will work on the first two steps here of actually discovering that information in the next stream. Or maybe I'll work on that in between the stream, maybe, if I have some time. But let's work on some of the back end here. So let's go to models. All right, so here, so we're using Sql Model so a very popular ORM or object relational mapper, something along those lines, basically where you can map or model what your database is going to look like in Python, and then the ORM library will translate that to SQL and allow you to, without you having to know all the SQL statements and everything like that. So it's pretty cool. And I personally didn't understand that at first, but then I ran into Sql Model, and it kind of just opened my eyes to things. I've used SQL Alchemy or SQL Alchemy in the past. That's kind of the base foundation for a lot of ORMs. And SQL Model is actually built on top of SQL Alchemy. The difference is SQL Model is built also with Pydantic models or data models. And so it allows you to do more strict type annotations and type hinting. And so it actually helps you in the long run. And so let me pull up the documentation for it. So it looks a lot like Fast API documentation. Like I said, same maintainer. And if you're ever interested, by the way, in like databases and understanding what ORMs are, you can see, I mean, the maintainer, the name's, I'm losing, it's getting late. So, but the name, his name's slipping my mind. But anyways, he does a really good job with documentation. He probably makes the best documentation I've seen as far as explaining not just the library, but also some of the background information that you need to know. So he goes over what a database is. He goes over what ORMs are, how it relates to how SQL Model interacts with SQL, and it's just really good information, very good examples. So let's go ahead and create a table here. Create rows, create table. Okay. Because what we'll need to do right now, we have one table, and let me pop back over here. Yeah, so we have the test results table, and we created a base model that has, name, the time it's executed, success rate, everything we see in our results tab, right? And the only difference being is the different classes here for the read and delete and the results. They add a test ID, which is your primary key, right? It's that auto incrementing ID. And so the point of that is we have that in order to the test results one specifically is a table model, and these other two are actually data models. And I think I saw Blues mention it, Pydantic, yeah. So these data models, which are all sourced, from Pydantic, and if you're interested or you don't know what Pydantic is, it basically is a data. Let me pull it up here. I'm sorry if some of it's dark mode, some of it's light mode. But you can see the primary means of defining objects in Pydantic is via models. These models are basically used to pass in untrusted data and then parsing and validating it. So basically, here's a really easy example. This class user, it's a model that passes in untrusted data, right? It expects an ID to be an integer and the name to be a string with a default value of Jane Doe, right? Pretty simple. And if you've ever used another programming language, it's nothing new. It's just that Python, really up until the past, I would say, few years, has always been kind of, it's a dynamic language, loosely typed, where you don't have to say, hey, this is a string, this is an integer. Kind of just say a equals whatever, So, Pydantic, a Python module for appendix. No. All right. So we are going to create a new base. We're going to create a new base model and a new table for devices or inventory. So let's call it inventory base, and we'll call it device inventory. All right. So the thing is, we need to be able to dictate what's always part of an inventory and what would be specific to a device inventory. So in our case, I want to say all of this would be part of a inventory as it pertains to NetCheck, right? Because you can say, oh, well, there's inventories of, I don't know. Like, you can almost name any industry, right? It's hard, but in our specific case with NetCheck, everything, all these different attributes, pretty much across the board are standard. Where we can add onto the base, right? Because I would consider all these to be base values. Every device has a host name, management IP, a vendor, associated model, OS system, and a serial number, right? Where you might go a little off the chart with a device inventory is like what Nick mentioned, like number of interfaces. You may have something like routing protocol is active, or active routing protocol, you know what I mean? So there's a lot that could go into it, but I want to say for now, just to roll with it, let's stick with we'll keep all this in the base, the inventory base, and then management IP we'll call. So this is where you probably could also use, because you're in Python, I could use the IP address library and say it has to be an IPv4 address. And you know what? I'll just do that. IPv4 address. And I know IPv6 is out there, so I don't want to I'm not downing it in any way. I'm just saying a management IP will stick with an IPv4 address for now. If this thing goes big, then we'll change it back to accept IPv4 or IPv6. And actually, come to think of it, what I could do is I could say, I think I can do enum right? I'm trying to think of what that serial number string. So we'll keep it pretty loose for now. We'll just say they all need to be strings. I'm trying to think though, because there's a way with, I'm not going to get into it, but basically there is a way where you can say either or. So you can say an IPv4 or an IPv6 address, right? So union, there we go, Blues. A union, yeah. So I think union is a key word, and then you could, I think so. Let's see, if I do a quick fix, yeah, typing import union. Because then I could just do an IP address dot IPv6, oops, address. There we go. So now one must be a class. I thought you could do that. Oh, hold on. I think it's trying to make this table. That's the problem. We'll call this device ID. All right, you know what? For now, let's see. Backend models. Yeah, so it's not an issue with, I thought it might have been an issue with this. I think the issue now is delete the database. Let's see. I'm trying to figure out the error message we're getting here. It looks like, all right, so if I get through the traceback, it's going to the API endpoint here for PyTS. I'm not sure what the issue is with that though. Oh, you know what? Hold on. So, Blues, I think the problem was, for whatever reason, SQL Alchemy wasn't taking that table. I'm sorry, that value, IPv, the IPv4 IPv6 address. I think that was the problem. Yeah. So now if we check out the database, open database, open anyway. Oh, I don't have SQL. I'm trying to find SQLite. Oh, here we go. It is enabled. Why it doesn't open though? Select star from device inventory. It won't run this actually. Or I mean, there won't be anything in it. I was just hoping to get that visual open with. What? Open with. It's so weird. Oh, here we go. SQLite Explorer. Here we go. I don't know why I was confused. There we go. Show table. I didn't want to show the star. I do want to see. Alright, so hopefully you can see this. Down here at the bottom, you can see the database.db, and then you see a device inventory table, and then a test results table, right? So you can see all the different IDs, or I'm sorry, all the different columns and attributes we've assigned to each table. So the table was established. So just to recap what we did there, and I apologize that we went overboard there with what we could have done. So all we did, right, was created two new classes, one called inventory base, another one called device inventory that derives from inventory base, right, or inherits. And so it takes all these values, and that way if we wanted to add to this list, we can, which we did. We called it device ID, and we said it's a primary key, right? And then let's say we wanted to change one of these values. So let's say it's for device inventory, for whatever reason, let's say we wanted the serial number to be an integer, right, versus a string. We could change that and define it in this class, and it would override this value. So hopefully that makes sense for those watching. So, and let me get rid of getter values here. Right, so, and let me, So I have this script that runs basically on startup, right? It fills the table with some dummy information. You can see here, create DB and tables. Oh, I'm sorry. That's not the dummy one. This is the dummy one. Create test results. And I don't think we have that running, if I remember correctly. Let me just see. Yeah, no, we don't have it running right now. So let's do this real quick. Before we wrap up, let me go ahead and so we create the test results. So we'll say, let's see, we'll create a device. Actually, let me just see if we can somehow, if I create a test result, we'll do result 4. And we'll call this device inventory. Hostname equals device. We'll just say router 1. And so this is like a really good example of having type hints and type annotations in your code, because you could see I just typed in the first keyword of hostname and then comma, and then it popped up with this type hint here of like, hey, here's your other values, and here's the type of the data type that this class is expecting. So if we do management IP, we'll just say it's 10.1.1. Vendor, we'll just say it's Cisco. Model, we'll say it's a 9500. OS version, we'll say it's 17. I don't know the latest at this point, or recommended, but 1766. And we'll just call it serial number. We'll just say it's ABC1234, right? And we don't need a device ID because that's considered optional when you add it, right? The device ID will be present in the table, but you won't need to include like a device ID, and that's the point of it, right? The table will automatically create or increment that device ID for you, making it unique. All right, so I'm very interested. I've never done this before because I haven't really messed with two different tables. I'm very interested in, there we go. I'll say if it will write. Oh, I need to enable it again. Create test results. Boom. Huh? Oh my gosh, it worked. That's pretty cool. All right. So, let me add in another device. So we'll just say result 5. We'll call it switch 1. And we'll just say it's a 9600. And we'll say it's running 16.8.5. And we'll say it's not ABC, it's ZYX6789, right? Oh, and we have to add it. All right. So now if we do a run here, we should see 2 devices. Oops. Oh, here we go. I'm like, why is this not working? I kept pressing play, or to show the table, like select star. Yeah, so it did add. It looks like it added because the app auto reloads. I have it set to just reload every time I make a change. Router 1 got added in, 3 times. Switch 1 got added in once, but you can kind of see how the inventory will look. So pretty cool. I will tell you this, I wasn't sure how, right? So we created a device inventory object, which I may change the name of because that's kind of confusing. I might just call it device or something like that. And so, but I wasn't sure, like, if you had to assign it to a table, like if you had to point it to a table. But I guess Sql Model knows, based on the model itself, that it is a table, right? So you're assigning it to a table, and then you just have to fill out the parameters, right? And now, if you look at the database, it's in there. So the nice part is we got working with SQLite. We should be able to port this to like a Postgres DB, and then we'll be good. We'll be solid. In the future, obviously, if we do plan to, deploy it out and anyone wants to actually adopt it in a real working environment. So that's cool. So we got this table working, the device inventory table. Let me just change it. Oh, hold on. Oops. So let me just change the model name real quick before we get any further to just device. Actually, I'll just keep it. I got to figure this out. I don't know what I want to do with it just yet. But all right. So the last thing I think we'll do before we close out the stream, it might take us a little over 10 o'clock Eastern, but I want to see what this result looks like in our inventory page. So like I said, next stream we'll cover this top half here, doing the auto detection, and then getting some information using show version. But what I want to do, I think now, is like we do with the results page, where all this is printed out in a table. In the inventory page, I want to be able to see those devices. Blues, you got to go. Thank you for stopping by, and thank you for all the help today, especially that nugget on the NetMiko library. That was thanks for that. All right, so inventory. All right, so we're going to take out this placeholder. We're going to add in a table, and then that should be it. Then we're going to wrap up from there. The nice part is we've already done this once with the results tab. So let me pop over to results. And, oh, that's not it. It's the custom results, or in the partial results table. All right. So there's a few things we need to do. So one, we need to create a partial results table for the devices. So we'll call this partial inventory table. And the reason we're calling it partial, by the way, not to confuse anyone, is because it's only partial code for HTML, right? So it's only in scope for, as I shown with Htmx, you make it makes a request to your backend and does server-side rendering, and then returns the result. Well, that return result can't be an entire HTML page, so that's why we call it a partial. So that's why you see my my naming mechanism start with partial. All right. So actually, let me go here real quick. So we're going to call it hostname. So what we're going to do is I'm going to first put the partial, which ultimately will be the rendered table, okay? Vendor OS version. And serial number is the last piece. And so now all we do is, instead of test results, we'll call it device inventory. And so this is our Jinja 2 template. And I know I'm kind of just going through it right now. But basically what we're doing is we're grabbing all this information and we're looping through it using Jinja. So the results here is all these results, and each individual result is every row, okay? And the reason we include device inventory is because each of these in Python, right? Each row is a device inventory object. And so that's kind of why why we're looping through each individual, or why we have to specify device inventory. That's why I was thinking about changing the name to just device or devices. But I think I'm going to keep it. Oh, I did forget one, model. All right, so we have model, OS version. All right, and the last one is serial number. And we're not, just so you're like, hey, there might be another value. That's just the device ID. That's the primary key. We're not too worried about showing that in the rendered table. Now, this may be something we include in the API, which, like I said, is a whole other discussion. But for now, we just want to see this rendered table in the HTML. All right, so we have our partial. And so now what we have to do is create our inventory results. So you see we have a custom results, and it just has a little bit of, it doesn't have much at all on it, to be honest with you. So if we go to custom, or let's just call it inventory results. So what we're going to do is do an hx get, which is, remember, the Htmx value of basically saying, hey, I want to do a get request. We're going to do it to partials. That doesn't seem right. Custom results. Interesting. I'm not sure how exactly that works because we're not. It's doing Htmx get to the partials folder and then results dash table. But I don't know. Let me see. Let me just do results dash table. See where we're at. Oh, duh. So that's like a common. So it's doing a route to partials. It's doing get request to partials results table, not the folder structure. I don't know why I was thinking that. So instead of doing that, we're going to do partials dash inventory table. Actually, I'm just going to call it inventory. Well, no, we'll call it table. It's fine. And we'll do a load every 5 seconds. And so if we go back to main.py, so our main application, we can go to we can basically copy this partials here. Almost so we'll call it inventory. So now instead of doing, and so this is with our ORM with Sql Model, where what we're doing is just getting all the test results. For this one, we were getting it all from the test results table, but now we're getting it from the device inventory table, right? Because we want to get all of our inventory. And so we'll go to partials inventory underscore table. So we're rendering the table template, which is this here, right? The HTML. And we kind of did it backwards. We already fed in the name of the data set we want. So it's called results. That's what we're looping through. And so you can see here, we have a results, and all the test results that came from the database are being fed into the HTML page. And so let's see if this works. Hold on. Oh, duh. Inventory results. Yeah, so I need oops. So I actually need to take this little bit of code here and add it to this page here and put it into here. This is probably going to look a little funky at first, but it should work. Oh, there we go. All right, so sweet. We have our inventory now. Actually, I guess we'll keep that. And you can see it looks good. I think so. Obviously, these are all dummy values, so now we have to plug in this piece of it of adding a device to inventory, but we're there. I mean, we're getting there. So, yeah. So, yeah. Nick, I'm glad you're sticking around. You definitely deserved it after the last stream where everything just failed on me. So, and come to think of it, I actually really enjoy this. Like, these things are called cards. If you see here, the card values, or I'm sorry, the card styles. I really like that. I think it makes for a clean look. You can see the results page doesn't have that right now. But I may actually, after this stream, or definitely before the next stream, I will shore this up a little bit and make it look a little better, like the inventory here. But yeah, this worked out really good. I wasn't sure how adding another table would work, or if there was going to be issues with it, but yeah, that's good. And we don't need Nick asks, think you'll need to adjust any fields to account for longer serial numbers or host names? Good question. So I don't know. Hold on, let me delete this one file that I don't need. And so let me go back to the models page real quick, or the models file. So that would be a very interesting. I don't know, Nick, to answer your question, because I don't know for a string. I don't know what that means, like how long that actually means, like how big of a what that translates to. Let me check if this will give me some sort of information. So it looks like it just gives us a varchar value. Let me look that up. Sql var car data type. The name suggests it's a variable character. So I knew it was a variable character. I'm more or less wondering how long. It can store up to 8,000 characters. Okay. So this is probably a little extra. It's probably a little extra. We probably can do like a varchar, or however you want to pronounce it. I'm going to say varchar. 256, because that's a lot of storage. There's no need for us to get that much memory or allocate that much memory, because we don't need 8,000 characters per field. So put a constraint on the length for hostname. Yeah. So my plan probably to optimize it will be to change it from a string to a varchar 256. Honestly, I probably could do less than that. 256 is probably even high. Maybe like 50. That's kind of where I was thinking. Anything longer than 50. So what I'll do is I'll adjust the data for the database, or I'll adjust the the data type, and then on top of it, I will I'll put front end validation, so that way you can't put in a host name that's more than, call it 50 characters, right? So a couple ways to do it, but yeah, I think we're at a really good point right now. So we have our homepage, our inventory. The only thing is with their inventory, we have to be able to add in some more control parameters, or control buttons. So deleting things from inventory, like how does that look? And that's more front end stuff, which I'm not as comfortable with, but maybe we could figure out how to do it via Htmx, right? If there's some sort of way we can add in per row some sort of like a modify delete value, at least to delete, like maybe there's a way we can somehow at least add or delete. Modify would be great, but I think I'll just, for simplicity, just do add or delete. Validation. So this has been here the whole time. These are very fixed validation use cases. And then custom validation, right? We have that. And once we get the inventory figured out, how to add devices in inventory, what we'll do with the custom validation is we'll have a text box where you can start typing the host name, just like what I showed in that Htmx example. So you would start typing like RT for router 1, and it should pop up and say, hey, you want to use router 1 for this test. And at first, I'm going to just do single select, but I would like to get to multi-select, to where I can pick multiple devices to run each test case against it. So the analysis piece hasn't really been touched yet, and then the results. So the only other thing I want to do with the results is take the logs and attach it as like a downloadable or a downloadable file to each of these, right? So maybe right next to the name, or it would be a link on the name where you could download the file. That would be clutch. So that way you can download and get the logs. So that way, like if you see a success rate of 100, you'd be like, all right, cool, I don't need to actually look at the logs. But maybe like this one for 50, and definitely the one for 0, you might want to look at the logs. But this will come in due time for sure. Any field set to unique so you don't have two devices with the same management IP at the same time. I believe the serial number is your primary key. No, so right now my primary key is the ID, the generated ID. So the device ID, here we go. So I didn't include it in the test results or on the web front end, but you can see this device ID is my primary key. I could use the management IP as the primary key as well. That might be a good point. So that way there's no two devices in there. But I think I'm gonna stick with the device ID just because I know it will be unique, right? So if I delete number 6 here, the next device should still be number 7, right? So that's kind of, I'm going to stick with that for now. Plus, it may help if somehow if I want to do joins in the future, right? I got to figure out what key can I join on. And I just, with management IPs, I don't know if that would work, but yeah, a lot to consider. Hopefully it makes sense, Nick, with some of the studying you've been doing, the dev core stuff, because I mean, this is it in, I would say, a real life example, but yeah, I mean, it's not really a professional piece of software, but you know, you're still applying those same concepts even in small projects like this. So all right, I think, well, I know it's a good place to stop. We've got a lot done. You know, we added an inventory section, not to its fullest yet, obviously. We still have to be able to add devices and do some sort of initial discovery. But I mean, hey, I think it's looking pretty good. It's looking pretty good. So, yeah. Next stream, we will add in the discovery phase, and then we'll also add in that search functionality, or try to add in that search functionality. So, but thanks for everyone that's tuned in, and I will be back next Thursday, 8 o'clock. If you have any questions in the meantime, you know where to find me. Twitter at DevNetDan. That's the best place to find me. And yeah, thanks again for tuning in, and I will talk to you all next week. See ya.
Hold me close till I get up. Time is barely on our side. I don't wanna waste what's left. The storms we chase are leading us, and